right. Are they all being forced to do this? Is it organic? What's going on with these student protests?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout, Rhode Island and Taiwo Comfort Solutions.
Parkland, Florida was a horror show. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Reaction to it, though, in my judgment, has been a horror show as well. We are a polarized country right now, on the left and on the right. And, you know, we've done our part here, I think, I don't think we've ever, no one will ever have done enough to have the dialogue that we need and the constructive political response, I think, that we need to situations like Parkland, Florida, with the goal, I think, to prevent it from ever happening again. But the polarization has left, I think, some really practical discussion in the middle missing. And what we've done here is we introduced, and I think perhaps I'm told by accident, we may have caused the red flag legislation here in this state by suggesting to the former U.S. Attorney and Attorney General candidate Peter Nerona that there has to be a way that we can respond in kind like we do with domestic violence situations to take weapons away from people who are at least promoting the idea that they want to use them, especially on soft targets. And since then we've had the red flag legislation proposed by the Rhode Island Association of Police Chiefs, and the governor has, in her own way, as she does often because she's so programmed with her political strategies, she has taken it hostage with this phony executive order, rather than just suggesting that there ought to be legislation to pass so that police organizations can go to judges very quickly. My point is that the politics get torn up and cut up in 6 different ways, no matter what good, intrinsically smart idea we have is forwarded. Having said that, one of the nice things I think about what's happened here, if there's anything nice, is that kids have become active and they've got their own points of view, and I want to hear from them perpetually here in this conversation over the next months or so. We'll start tonight. Here's a headline from the New York Times regarding some of the activity last week when all across the country on March 16th, I think it was, or 17th, whatever it was, late last week, everybody kind of stepped out of school for 17 minutes, right? Here's a story on the local reaction.
Hundreds marched to the State House.
This is what democracy looks like.
Signs reading statements like "Protect our kids, not guns," and "Enough is enough."
We will keep fighting, we will keep protesting, and we will make a change.
Local students asked lawmakers to take a stand against gun violence and specifically keep weapons away from schools.
Concealed carry is prohibited in K-12 schools in 39 states. That leaves 11 to go.
The governor also commending the large turnout.
Stand your ground and require action, because if you do, you're going to save lives.
But not all agree on the loud demonstration asking for stricter gun laws.
We need to sit down at the table and come up with political solutions.
Representative Michael Chippendale says people need to understand that unfortunately criminals will be criminals. His stance is to better enforce the current legislation in Rhode Island.
Firearm statutes in the state of Rhode Island have been proven time and time again and by every measure to be some of the safest and strictest in the nation.
And over in East Providence, pro-gun students held a walkout of their own. One sign reads, "Assault is a behavior, not a device," while others show support for the Second Amendment.
All right, so from Classical and the Met School, we have 2 students who've been active. We'll meet one more before the evening is over. Taiwo. Easy for you to say. Taiwo. You know, I practiced that 3 times before we started. It's not that hard. It's only 2 syllables. And Taliq.
Yes.
Got it. Welcome. Classical High School, Met High School. Were you involved last week on the 14th regarding these protests?
Yes, we actually both were, and we were both involved in organizing the protest as well,
Okay.
Part of the Providence Student Union.
The Providence Student Union makes people worried.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes. Are you aware of that?
A bit.
Observers would suggest that those who think that this is a problem, that you've spoken out, I'm not one of them, but those who believe that it's a problem, think you've already been brainwashed by the political left organizations out there that are seizing the moment and building their own young constituencies. You understand that, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Tell me about it.
Well,
What's your reaction?
Well, the Providence Student Union is a youth-led organization, and so students are in charge of what we choose to organize and demonstrate about from the top down. And so what you see here, especially with the walkout, it's student-led, and it's something by the students and for the students. So there's no one talking in our ear, no adults trying to brainwash us.
The original,
per se.
listen, the Providence Student Union came to the forefront when you were probably freshmen or sophomores or maybe even younger, when there were a couple of different issues, but the one issue that I thought was really profound was the safety in walking to school and the snow and the mess and the number of trips that you had to take dangerously just to get to school. And I think that was such a right thing for you folks to do. But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, Brown University activists, had a hand in starting the Providence Student Union at its inception, and there's a concern out there that you're not organically or organically coming up with these ideas yourselves. Again, I'm not hung up on it, but I figured I would address it right away and ask you what you think about the need to do this through the student union, or whether most kids across the country and here in the region and in the state and even in the city would have done this anyway without that kind of organizational base. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, that point that you bring too, especially because there are a lot of assumptions that can be made when you're not at the table and when you're not having the discussions that we are with one another. We are driven by discussion. Before even deciding to do this walkout, we had a discussion on whether it aligned with our beliefs, whether or not we would be passionate enough to pursue it. And it's all like kind of discussion based, and it is a conversation. It's very intentional and deliberate as far as the discussions that we have and the actions that we want to carry out. I think that in order to get anything done, we have to work intergenerationally, we have to work with other organizations, and we have to understand that even though it's student-led, that doesn't mean that students have all the answers. Even though it's student-led, we need to kind of have people who work in kind of informing us about policies, but also making sure that we're taking action in the right way. In our organizing and our efforts, we met with adult organizers who were allies. We had adult allies help in the walkouts, getting students to those state houses.
We're going to get to the arguments about safety and all of that, so we're not going to get mired down in this political thing too much. But what organizations would you consult with?
Yeah, so we have like a large emailing list of other student organizations, so Youth in Action, the PRISM. We had allies from Brown University too come help and support. We had people from Providence College. We also had the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence. So those are just some constituents. I don't have the list with me, but there's...
Let me ask you this. How many kids do you think are classical or at the Met School right now who actually have their own independent thought about school safety that has nothing to do with gun control? How many? Very few?
We don't do research on this.
Is there conversation in the cafeteria about it?
Yeah, this is something that affects our lives and is all over social media.
Saying, are you hearing from those kinds, is that perspective, because that perspective is profound in the general population.
Yeah.
That it's not about AR-15s, that it's not about guns. It's about hardening targets. It's about the red flag legislation, as I suggested. It's about, is there any bubble up from our young people about ideas that are not predominantly gun control oriented?
Well, some of the conversation has also talked about, instead of having increased security in our schools, having more counselors and clinicians. So we're not the entire conversation is just geared towards gun control. Because as you can see, yes, guns are a problem in schools, but then also, as you can see, like in urban communities, we have that problem as well. So it's just not an isolated thing, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that there's one guidance counselor for like every 400 students, and people who are claiming mental health is a problem regarding the control, I guess you could say that's the point, but it's not the meat of the actual problem. But we can also take this opportunity to say like, hey, in these high schools, we need more resources when it comes to making sure that students are not falling through the cracks like those who may decide to take up arms against some of their students because they maybe not have gotten the help that they needed.
All right, that's a good start. We'll work from there when we come back. Stay with us. problems. You know, where it all started, unfortunately, at least this latest tragic episode, that's Parkland High School in Florida, and of course you've already seen, I'm sure, video from all across the country on March 14th that students, you know, walked out for 17 minutes. Did you walk out for 17 minutes and go back to class, or did you guys walk out for a while and head up to the State House? What happened?
I participated in the 17 moments of silence for the victims in Parkland.
Okay.
But at Classical High School, we walked out, and also at other high schools, for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Why?
Well, we wanted our walkout to be more intersectional than the national walkout happening. And so we realized that in this conversation on gun violence, it's more than just Parkland, it's more than high schools. It's happening, it's an epidemic, it's happening everywhere. Like I said before, I'm going to bring it up again, that we're seeing more mass shootings happening in our urban communities. And so we want to make sure that when we walk out, we are saying a much larger message. One that shows solidarity, of course, with the national message, of course, but we're not just doing this for Parkland.
Are you afraid in school?
Yes.
You're afraid? Were you afraid before Parkland?
Afraid before Parkland? I would definitely say so, because we were seeing gun violence more often and more regularly. Because even before that, what we had, I don't get my numbers wrong, but we had a couple happen. And even just like Aurora, Orlando, Summerlin, Springs Church, it's been a recent thing that I've had to grow up with within this generation. And so, I mean, it's not rare to find yourself like sitting within a math class and thinking like, what will be my exit strategy? And that's a problem. We shouldn't be having our students even have that thought cross their minds. And I've said this before, like I gave a speech and I said that we are the generation of lockdown drills. We are the generation of worried parents and checking phone calls. And why
Westerly
do we allow
High
this
School
to continue?
Westerly High School has started, you've got to wear a badge to prove that you actually attend the school. Are you afraid in school?
Yeah, and this is actually something that we've discussed as students just among ourselves outside of any organization, but you know, I was thinking about it, and there was the Aurora shooting, and like at a certain point it just felt, I had become aware of the fact that I was being desensitized to these things. I was like, oh, another one. And that kind of feeling and that kind of thought, it almost like, it made me feel bad at the fact that I was used to it and that I knew how it would go, is that we would show solidarity, we would stand with them, we would acknowledge it, we would talk about problems and possibly talk about policies we could pass, and then it would be done, and then we would move on. With our efforts in organizing this walkout, we want to be very, very particular, and we want it to engage in a way that we haven't engaged in before, with policies, with understanding policies, and with educating our youth about different policies, so that this conversation is more sustainable, and the change we make doesn't just last for that 17 minutes, or it doesn't just last for that Wednesday, March 14th, that we're lobbying, we're learning about our representatives. That was March 14th, the walkout we organized. That was the first time some of those students had ever been in their state house. Their state house, which is a public space, which is where they're able to lobby. It was my second time.
What about you?
Maybe second or third time.
Yeah. So we just wanted to be very intentional and make sure that our efforts were to engage youth in a more sustainable way.
In a continuous way.
And although they have this, you know, they have their perceptions and they have their ideas, we're open to hearing new perspectives and new ideas and new ways
All right, what do you
to
want?
go about
What do you want?
solutions.
Top 3 bullets. Bing, bing, bing. What do you want? Ironically, bad term, right? But bullet points, as it's known. What do you want?
Yeah. I would say more counselors in schools. That involves fostering the relationships between SRO officers who often exist. I would say the ban on assault weapons is a step. I think it needs to be done in a particular way.
What way?
Well, we have to kind of know how we're defining assault weapons and be intentional about that, and we also have to make sure that we understand. This is something that's been coming up more, is the hyper-partisanship in our country and the polarization. And I think that kind of drives a lot of the tension and the controversy when you talk about any of these topics. So I think we have to examine what our constitutional rights are, so that we're all on the same understanding and playing field, and then understand that as times change, we have to be more cognizant of how we go about functioning as a government.
And number 3, is there a third?
Yeah.
Is there a third?
Do you want to offer something?
Well, if you look on our Facebook page for the actual walkout, there are more than 3. But you touched upon getting rid of, making sure that, no guns in schools. And I also want to just emphasize the fact that when we say we do not want guns in schools, it's also making sure that our SRO officers are not armed and having better ways when it comes to keeping our schools safe. So, for example,
you want to take weapons away from police officers in your schools.
This is still a conversation going on. However, what I'm trying to say is that lethal weapons, how do I say this, and having maybe more restorative justice practices going on within these schools. So, because also we have to keep in context that in schools like Central and schools that within our inner cities, the relationship between police officers isn't the same as we would see in suburban communities.
Gotcha.
So we have to be, like he said before, cognizant that different communities will react to gun violence in different ways, and therefore the solution will not look the same everywhere.
Well, it's interesting to note, and I noted this often after the shooting in Parkland, most of the nation's tragedies, soft target schools, are suburban. They're suburban.
Something we've definitely talked about.
So that's a completely different issue. I mean, it's something that needs to be identified.
Yeah.
We got about 32 shows coming out of this conversation. I got to pause. We'll come back. We'll meet one more student. Stay with us.
What do you think about this idea of arming teachers?
It's stupid.
Why?
First of all, Douglas ran out of paper for like 2 weeks in the school year, and now all of a sudden they have $400 million to pay for teachers to get trained to arm themselves? Really? Really? If you're a teacher and you have a gun, do you keep it in a lockbox or do you carry it on your person? If the teacher dies and a student who's a good student is able to get the gun, are they now held responsible to shoot the student who's come into the door? I'm not happy with that.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this Emma Gonzalez, what I didn't realize is that the Parkland students were well versed in debate, that their debate skills, preliminary to this whole tragedy, were at a very high level. She could box Donald Trump underneath the table in about 10 seconds. And it kind of goes to some of your thoughts. You want to de-arm resource officers because the urban setting is even different. Gabe Jones is from Classical High School. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your overall thought on this, because you just caught up in the conversation, is what?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of arming teachers,
or just that, the whole concept, off some of the conversation we've had already.
So I definitely believe that gun violence itself, it's a bunch of many different complex issues. So if you look at the breakdown of it, for example, there are about 10,000 gun homicides per year, and 66% of the victims of them are black males, which shows that inner cities often face, in terms of homicides, face very disproportionately. Because to put that in context, black males are about 6.5% of the U.S. population, and 66% of gun homicide victims. But then there are about 20,000 gun deaths per year by suicide. 20,000 suicide gun deaths per year, and the main victims of that actually tend to be middle-aged white males, which is very interesting. So we need to look at all the different problems that make up the entire epidemic of gun violence in the United States, and we need to attack them separately. It's not just one very simple issue, and as was touched upon, mass shootings, they only make up 3% of gun deaths per year.
Are you guys, your classical, our previous student was from the Met School. Are you talking to the suburban kids at all? Because we're going to get some kind, or not, statewide legislative response to this. And it's not going to be nuanced. It's not going to be what's good, for classical, which is, by the way, a highly reputable high school, but it's urban in its geographic and psychographic setting here, sociographic, all of these things. Are you talking to the suburban kids?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're going to have to find a way to get outside the Providence Student Union mentality if you're going to get something accomplished here.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of the planning that went into this, actually, a lot of the students that we had met with beforehand actually were from Barrington. And it's very interesting to see their perspective, because the gun violence issue, as I was alluding to before, the gun violence issue is different for different communities. So for them, it's much more about the threat of mass shooting and like a beautiful suburban community like Providence, Florida, and Barrington.
And you're worried about everyday handgun issues in the street and perhaps sneaking into the school, correct?
Correct. I guess you could say that. Yeah. I
don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just. You're learning something about this process, that constituencies matter and are different, and perspectives, even inside all of those who are rightly concerned about what happened in Parkland, Florida. I wouldn't say it's an infinite number of concerns, but it's not a monolithic thought process here, right?
Yeah, right. And
it's a test.
Yeah. And
of skill, diplomacy, vision.
Yeah, and I mean, gun violence itself in the inner city is a bunch of, even within itself, is a bunch of very complex issues, because it's not just like, because obviously gun control is not the be-all and end-all answer for that. I mean, of course, joblessness in the inner cities is a huge issue, and obviously entrenched institutional racism. So
I mean, let me get, these shows are so frustrating because we never have enough time. These kids will walk out of here and think, I always ask young people, teenagers, college students, what they want to do when they grow up. Tongue in cheek. You're already grown up. I'm not even going to ask you. No, you're already grown up. You've grown up too fast, unfortunately, in some of these settings. But you're impressive, well behind your years. Is there something that will happen in the next 3, 6, 9 months that you'll say, okay, that's good? Quickly. Pass. We'll come back to you. Is there?
You mean in terms of legislation being passed?
Yes, anything. What we say, oh, good, we got that.
Absolutely.
What is it?
In terms of, in Rhode Island, the first step, I think, is always the very low-hanging fruit is the assault weapons ban. And I'm unfortunately pretty pessimistic about that, just because of the nature of Rhode Island politics, because I know that Speaker Mattiello has a lot of power in terms of letting that bill come to the floor, and I know that he's very much favored by the NRA. And
all three political scientists here,
who
don't watch this show, by the way, and who will after this episode. But you're perceptive. 20 seconds. Something that'll happen in the short term that'll make you feel better. Anything?
Short term.
No right answer.
We'll see about the Safe Schools Act, but I'm sure that's maybe more in the long term. As long as we're getting our students active and educated and more civically engaged, I feel like that itself would be an accomplishment for now.
All right. Keep working on it. Keep coming back. Come on the radio soon. It's a dialogue. It's a marathon, man. It ain't a sprint. There's no doubt about that. All right. Stay with us. We've got a big show tomorrow night. We'll tell you about it. All right, coming up on the program tomorrow, the Commissioner of Secondary Education, and I'm sure she'll have her own thoughts on this, because this is an education issue, but they've got a lot of initiatives going on that level right here in the state. And by the way, the RIC president, Rhode Island College president, will join us for the first time on this show coming up on Thursday. All right, we'll see you on the radio, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great evening. See you.